just want to remind everyone that celebration of being Filipino does not end here today. We got to carry that everywhere we go. We got to carry that throughout the year.
Spark, Connect, and Empower is a movement born in San Francisco to engender love and passion for Filipino heritage and culture among Filipino Americans. In the process, connecting them and empowering them as individuals and collectively as a community.
Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Pinoy ako! Proud ako! Smart, connect, empower, Pinoy 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 ako! Listen, Phil, I'm to the next generation. Millennials, you are the future of the nation. Embrace your past, be proud of who you are. Spark, ignite your pride and curiosity. Connect with one another and with your ancestry. Empower, be the forefront of the community. Be proud of who you are. Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, I'm proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. Pinoy ako, proud ako. Be proud of your race and your identity. Be vanguards of your culture and heritage you'll see. Come and belong, stand tall, then you'll know. It's fun, oh so fun to be a Filipino. But diverse, we are many but united. Be proud, shout it out and show we're not divided. Behold the Filipino spirit that's in you. Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, at proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. Pinoy ako, proud ako. All it takes is a spark to connect and empower nation building beyond the borders. Come and celebrate who we are. Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, at proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. Yes! Pinay ako, taas noo, pagmamalaki ko sa buong mundo. Pinoy ako, at proud ako. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. I'm proud to be who I am. Yes, I'm proud. I'm proud to be who I am. So proud. I'm proud to be who I am. I'm proud to be a Pinoy. Pinoy ako! Proud ako!
Magandang umaga po mga kababayan. Good morning from San Francisco. And since we're also seen in other parts of the world, good afternoon, good evening to all the Filipinos wherever you are. And welcome to our Tanong ni CONGEN. And we're so happy and we're so honored and elated for today because today we have a very special guest po. And a very special guest from Washington, D.C. And in a few seconds, I will introduce him. But allow me to say that I think it's very timely that we have our guest today, a very special one, to talk about an issue that is very important, especially in terms of the Filipino Americans, in terms of our relationship with the United States, in the context of the pandemic and many issues facing humanity and the country and that bilateral relations. No? So we're very honored to have no less than His Excellency Ambassador Jose Manuel Babe del Gallego Romualdez for our special guest, a special edition of TNC today. Uh, Ambassador Romualdez was appointed Ambassador of the Philippines to the United States in July 2017 by President Rodrigo Duterte. He is the head of the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C., but also of all the foreign service posts in North America, in the United States, all the consulates general. He is concurrently also the Philippine emissary to the Commonwealth of Jamaica, Republic of Haiti, Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua and Barbuda, Bahamas, Barbados, Dominica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines and St. Lucia. Wow, that's a lot in the Caribbean. So just mentioning those jurisdictions, you can see the load of the ambassador. So before his appointment, Ambassador Romualdez was designated as a special envoy of the Philippine President to the United States. He also served as a member of several Philippine business delegations visiting the United States, China, Japan, and New Zealand from 1989 to 2012. Ambassador Romualdez is a seasoned media practitioner and business executive. He is the former Chief Executive Officer of Stargate Media Corporation and publisher of People Asia magazine. He still maintains a column in a major broadsheet in the Philippines, the Philippine Star. His columns have a big following both in the Philippines and abroad. Ambassador Romualdez comes from a family of medical practitioners. His father served as former Secretary General of the World Medical Association, and his brother is the former Secretary of Health, Alberto Romualdez Jr. Ambassador Romualdez was born and raised in Manila. Ambassador Romualdez received a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from the La Salle College in 1970. He's an avid golfer and is affiliated with Manila Golf and Country Club and the Manila Polo Club. Sisingit na rin po ako, may connection. I think we come and we have connection also from the same high school, Malate Catholic School. I-project ko na rin po, Ambassador. So, ladies and gentlemen, mga kababayan, we're so honored po to have with us the man that we really respect for what he does, both as a person, as a public servant, as a family person. No less than His Excellency Ambassador Jose Manuel del Gallego Romualdez. Sir, magandang umaga po sa inyo, sir.
Magandang umaga sa iyo, Henry. Thank you very much for that very long introduction, but that's fine. Given my entire autobiography already. So, anyway, let me just greet all of you. Magandang araw sa inyong lahat. Ikaw rin, CONGEN Henry, and to all of our viewers today. I hope that all of you are doing well and staying healthy during these very challenging times. I also would like to commend our CONGEN Henry and his team at the Philippine Consulate General in San Francisco for launching this offline program, which is very useful for sharing the information with the Filipino communities in the United States Northwest. I certainly welcome the opportunity to be with all of you today. Let me begin by stating that the relationship between the Philippines and the United States remains very strong, which owes a whole lot to the robust people-to-people ties and connections between our two countries. While there are many areas of cooperation that we commonly work on together, this time of the global pandemic has required us to focus much of our attention on how we can help one another address the challenges of COVID-19. We also look upon the global leadership of the United States in enabling the production of a safe and effective vaccine, as well as facilitating its rapid distribution worldwide. From day one, we have always believed a vaccine is probably the only way out of this crisis. The embassy team in Washington, D.C. has been actively seeking out and engaging U.S. pharmaceutical companies in advanced stages of vaccine development to help ensure the Philippines' priority access to vaccines once these are available. Some of these companies that we have been interacting with are the Moderna, Pfizer, Novavax, and Inovio. We also have been able to connect them with the officials in the Philippines who are the whole of government task force who are responsible for addressing the pandemic in our country, including the Secretaries of Health, Finance, and Science and Technology. Our efforts here in the United States are also, or likewise, complemented with the Philippines' participation in the Gavi COVAX facility, a global coalition of countries and vaccine manufacturers primarily intended to facilitate the greater and wider distribution of vaccines on a worldwide scale. Of the 150 vaccine candidates under development, 25 of them are now undergoing human trials in various stages. This horrific pandemic has surely upended the world and changed the way we all live. More than ever, we believe countries should work together in creating solutions to the myriad of issues that threaten global security, stability, and prosperity. International cooperation is the only way for all of us to learn from our mistakes and build a better and safer post-pandemic world. It is in this spirit that the Philippines continues to foster strong relations with all countries, including our long-standing ally and partner, the United States. I am confident that the Philippines-US alliance will endure because, again, our people-to-people ties are simply unbreakable. The embassy's diplomatic initiatives have likewise focused on maintaining investor confidence in the Philippine economy, which many analysts and experts say is well positioned for a strong recovery. The pandemic has created an impetus for the Philippine government to fast-track infrastructure development projects under the ambitious Build program, while implementing the social amelioration packages that aim to shield vulnerable groups from the pandemic's negative economic effects. In closing, I assure our kababayans that the embassy, together with the consulates general and the Philippine Overseas Labor Offices, continue to extend all the necessary and appropriate assistance to Filipinos here in the United States and the Caribbean who find themselves in distress due to the pandemic. Since the early COVID-19 outbreaks in March, the embassy has been facilitating the repatriation of Filipino seafarers and other workers, exchange visitors, and stranded travelers. We have also been touching base with Filipino community leaders and coordinating with the host governments and employers to ensure that the welfare of our nationals continue to be protected. We've also been working to ensure that the consular services remain available and accessible as much as possible, while following stringent disease control guidelines for everyone's well-being and safety. Let me stop right here, and we'll be very happy to answer all your questions today. Back to you, CONGEN Henry. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We're most grateful, sir, for putting us up to speed in terms of our relations and what we're doing in the context of the pandemic. That's very reassuring, sir, to know that people are moving behind the scene to help others, and our country and our countrymen. So we're most grateful for that, sir. Sir, there are some questions here, and if you don't mind, sir, maybe pose some of those questions to you, sir. There's one question here, and it asks, how would you describe the relations between the Philippines and the United States today, sir?
Well, I think as of today, we are probably in one of our best in terms of our relationship here in the United States with the U.S. government. And of course, like I said, the people to people have greatly contributed to that. But let me just point out that I think in the past month and a half or 2 months alone, when the United States had changed its policy towards the South China Sea, you could see that this one was very much welcome in the Philippines because of their new policy, which basically recognizes our win in the arbitration, which you, by the way, CONGEN Henry, was partly responsible for. And this development is very good for us, and the Filipino people are very appreciative that the United States has finally come to the realization that this important issue be supported by not only the United States, but by the world. And so because of that, there's greater security now in terms of our territorial rights. And at the same time, it has also brought attention to the fact that many of the other countries that are also claiming in that area are also banding together and making sure that our territorial integrity is well protected. Now, because of that, we have also had our relationship, our diplomatic relation, of course, with this country is one of its best right now. As you know, Secretary Locsin has been in touch with Secretary Pompeo, and our security with the Pentagon, our relationship with the Pentagon and Department of Defense has been also very, very strong, and we have a lot of cooperation going on. And so far, our visiting forces agreement has been renewed at least until the end of this year, and hopefully it'll go on until next year. So all of this just adds to one thing, that our relationship with this country remains very strong, and I can see that it will remain that way for many, many years to come.
Sir, on that point, many, many years to come, could you expound, sir, beyond this pandemic, how that relationship will move forward, learning from the pandemic that we're having right now and the impact of that pandemic in terms of the total security situation, and how it will be beyond this, how that relationship with the United States could be harnessed to strengthen what you refer to as our national security in the future, sir?
Well, because of our mutual defense treaty, it's been around for more than, we're talking here about over 50 years now. This mutual defense treaty obviously is the cornerstone of our security agreement with the United States, and so they are considered to be our number one ally. We have also opened our doors to other countries, and needless to say, our relationships with many countries all over the world, our independent foreign policy has also helped us to a certain degree. Our relationship with China is much better than it ever was. While we have all of these issues surrounding the South China Sea, we will continue to interact with all these countries. At the end of the day, it is really more of the economic relationships that we will foster in the next couple of years, because we all want to be prosperous. And the ASEAN region is a very robust area of economic activity, and I venture to think, and many of our economic managers and a lot of analysts, including foreign analysts, agree that Asia and the ASEAN region will probably recover quicker and faster than most countries, precisely because we have everything in place, and that it is a growing economy of 650 million people, and it continues to grow. And that is where we're looking at. So with that, we've had a lot of interaction with a lot of US companies. And right now, just in fact, over the past 3 nights, we've had several webinars with the US ASEAN Business Council, with many of our cabinet secretaries present and being guest speakers. There is a very strong interest now coming from US companies to expand our economic interaction, not only in the Philippines, but also in the entire Asian region. So all that adds to one thing, that the future is bright in spite of the pandemic. I know it has caused a lot of pain, not only for our people, but for the world. But it is a learning curve. We've all learned. Like I said earlier, the digitalization of the world is now coming into fore. Things will probably be more efficient now. We're hoping that the internet service in the Philippines will improve tremendously, because they're pouring in a lot of money in the infrastructure of that one, and many other things that will happen. So I'm really, I would say, gung-ho about the Philippines. There's a lot of things that will show us that there is a very, very bright future for our country.
Wow, that's very refreshing, Ambassador. That spirit of optimism is very infectious, and it's great to listen to you and know what the future is from that optimistic perspective. So we're very inspired, sir.
You know,
But
just to let you know, Henry, that I've been around for such a long time. I'm much older than you are, and many of our friends. You know, I've been in media for more than 40 years now. And I have watched since I got out of school as a media practitioner from the 1970s up to now. Many people I know sometimes have a very negative view of what happens in the country, but these are all growing pains, and even up to today, it is a continuing process, so to speak. I know that there are people who are always hankering for change and all that, but you know, I'll tell you, patience is a virtue, and it's just a matter of time that our country is really going to be in one of the top 10 of the world, because our race is a different kind of race. We are hardworking people, and given the right atmosphere, we're going to get there. We have a lot of overseas workers that are very much appreciated. Our health workers are in demand right now. We have over 250,000 working outside, and there are many more countries that want our health workers because we're a good people, we're a good race, and I'm very proud to be a Filipino because of that, really. And this is all out of my own personal experience, watching all the political events and things that have happened to the country since the 1970s when I got into media. And that alone will tell you of why I feel this way. And it's not because I'm the ambassador here in the United States representing our country and the president, but because I really feel it. I'm very confident of that one. The changes that are happening in the Philippines is slow, but at the same time, you can see there are so many things that will give us an indication that there is a very bright future for our country. And that is what I want to give our Filipino-American friends here, that you have a second home in the Philippines. You will be proud that the Philippines will one day be one of those in the top 10. That will happen.
wow, nice to know, sir, and good to know of your very strong faith to the Filipino people, sir. And no doubt those inspiring words will spark our kababayans for doing more to help the country, you know. And we're so glad for those statements, sir. But going back on the national security, sir, there's a question on the visiting forces. The termination of the visiting forces agreement, which was originally scheduled for August 9, 2020, was suspended as announced by the Philippine government in June. What does this mean, sir? And what is expected to happen while we are extending the suspension of the termination of the visiting forces agreement, sir?
Well, first of all, let me point out that the visiting forces agreement suspension was precipitated by many of the so-called issues that have been thrown our way, specifically human rights and, of course, freedom of the press. And I happen to be in the front line here in the United States, in Washington, D.C., when several senators confronted me, so to speak, when I met with them late last year. And they were quite blunt with me and telling me that there are serious consequences if we continue to. And I explained to them that we are a country of laws, and all of these charges that are being made to individuals in the Philippines and individuals in the press are all according to the law. And human rights, perhaps we've accepted that there have been human rights abuses, but I also explained that there were close to 6,000 police officers who were involved in this so-called EJKs or whatever it is, human rights abuses, have been dismissed or are now being charged in court. So I explained to them that there are far more serious consequences if we are just simply going to throw away all of these things and just simply follow whatever the senators tell us. And that technically we give up our sovereignty. And I also told them that there are even far more serious consequences if you continue to openly criticize without looking at the process that is being followed. And I guess the serious consequences was taken seriously by our president, and the cancellation of the VFA is one of the reasons why, or one of the causes of that particular confrontation, not only to me, but to many in many cases. And it clearly showed that, look, if we are to be really friends, mutual friends, let's help each other in correcting. We all know now that there are so many human rights abuses here in the United States, particularly against blacks. That's why we have this Black Lives Matter thing that's going on right now here in the United States, and it's a worldwide problem. You have these kinds of abuses, but we all have to work together to make sure that all of these are corrected if there are any in a country. And many countries, there are authoritarian rulers, even in the Asian region. They don't have any of the kind of laws that we have and the protection for human rights and for rights, freedom of the press and all that. I think it's only fair that these things are vented or vetted first before any strong criticism and a very strong. It's like you're being told, hey, you're like a student being told by a teacher, this is what you do or we'll punish you, without even knowing the facts. And that's the reason why the VFA was suspended. But now we're working our way to bring it back and making our relationship a little more on equal footing. We've had various bumps in the past, and this is one of those bumps. But like I said, the relationship in this country is unbreakable. We will continue to have good relations with this country, and mutual respect is very important, especially as we grow out of our current situation. In other words, we are a country that's maturing very quickly, and so they should stop treating us like young boys. We're all coming into our adult life and as a country, and we're improving. And like I said, I'm very optimistic that things are really going to go well for the Philippines in the very near future.
Wow. Thank you po for that, because and thank you for explaining the reason and the rationale behind those developments, because many people have been asking how it went in that direction, and it's good that to hear that you're working po for the normalization. I suppose conversation continue to this day po, sir, no? To make that relation that you mentioned as a special one continue to grow stronger. Sir, on that strength of relations relating to the South China Sea, sir, I know earlier you made some explanations, but perhaps it will also be good for you to amplify some more in terms of the U.S. government announcing in July that about its strengthened policy as regards the maritime claims in terms of the clarity of the statement of Secretary Pompeo on the South China Sea. How do you think will the Philippines benefit from this robust policy articulation of the United States and the clarity of that policy, sir?
Well, we've been waiting for this for a very long time. And I think, as I said, I've been watching these events, and you were partly responsible for that. We all know the history of how we filed the case in the United Nations and at The Hague. And the United States kept on telling us that this is, we don't get involved in territorial disputes and so many other things that they're saying. You're aware of the fact that they also told us, advised us to get out of Scarborough Shoal, which was within our economic zone. And we followed it, well, I wouldn't say blindly, but we followed it with the assurance that they will also tell our Chinese neighbor to get out of the place. And we all know what happened. We left, and the Chinese remained. So, and then not only that, the Chinese stopped talking to us. You know that happened. And so President Duterte, when he came into office, he felt that we're on our own and we have to reach out to China because we can't afford to fight such a big nation as China. And so he reached out to them, and we have come to a situation now where, at the very least, we're talking. We have not given up our own cause, but we're moving cautiously. Now, with the United States now recognizing that adds to our so-called strength in the case that we want. Because only a country like the United States can confront a country like China. And you can see what happened. After they changed the policy, many countries, especially in the Asian region, those that were a little timid in the past in supporting our win, are now using our win. Again, credit to you and to the others who worked on it, that this is the right thing. That the UNCLOS arbitration win of the Philippines is the basis of how we will resolve the issues in the South China Sea. That is what's important. That now we have a country that has the stick, so to speak, in trying to implement that win. And hopefully, our Chinese neighbor will come to terms and accept the fact that we have to resolve this issue peacefully. Nobody wants to go into any kind of confrontation that will lead to war. It's bad enough that there are many things that are going wrong in the world in terms of, and the pandemic, of course, is causing every single country to suffer, including China. Their economy is also shrinking because of this pandemic. Even if it started in China, they're well aware of the fact that perhaps they learned that next time we will be reporting more quickly. Because no matter how small you are, every single country or every single person has a role to play in this world. If we are not going to cooperate and work together, we will go into perdition. This world will end, and we don't want that. So we have no choice. We have to work together, and we have to resolve issues peacefully and in the best way we can. And so that is our hope, and I am confident again that that's what's going to happen, because there are already indications that China is already beginning to realize that there's been some things that they need to sort of like reboot or reorient themselves into thinking, because they cannot do these things all by themselves. And that's really the bottom line. And I'd like to add also that many of our friends here, Filipino American friends here in the United States, who are well, some of them are professional hecklers, maybe, but some of them do love the country. And if you do love the country, then you should try to go out of your way to try to help. Like me, for instance, I'm just trying to give this as an example. That in 1986, I was one of those that fully supported, right after EDSA, the Cory Aquino government, because I felt that it was the government that the people wanted. And so I worked with Vice President Doy Laurel at the time here in the United States. We helped him, and he, of course, was with the Cory Aquino government. And any government that I feel is just doing what is right by our people, I fully support. That is the way we should really look at things. It doesn't matter what color you are. As long as your color is brown and you're a Filipino, you must go for what is best for the country. Never go for what is personally your agenda, because in the end, you're going to lose out. That's all there is to it. You have to always go for what is best for the country. And even if you're a Filipino American living comfortably well here, maski na papano, uuwi ka pa rin eh. Magbibisita ka, gusto mo rin na merong kang uuwian sa Pilipinas. So you want to see a country like where you were born or you have connections with. You want it to also be successful. Like I want to see the United States also well. I'm unhappy, or I'm feeling bad that there are so many of these violence that's going on in some of the cities here, uh, I feel bad for this country because I'd like to see this country to also be peaceful and prosperous because it will redound to the world. And they are our allies, they are our friends. And as a friend, we'd like to see them also doing well. And hopefully they will resolve all of these problems that they have, especially on the civil rights of many of their countrymen and this movement on the Black Lives Matter.
Wow. Thank you, sir, for that very objective explanation and I would say very magnanimous and very broad-minded assessment, sir. And hopefully our listeners will pick up on that and do their share in terms of helping the country as well and be part of the harmonization and development of the country and the people. I personally am inspired by that statement, sir. Sir, shifting now from national security, shifting to the current pandemic, sir. We've heard that China and Russia have announced progress in their respective developments of vaccines against COVID-19 and their intention to share this with the Philippines when it becomes available. Should we also expect the same from the United States? And how are we cooperating with the United States to address the pandemic, sir? Maybe you can give us some ideas of what is transpiring in this area, sir.
Well, like I said earlier in my statement, we are working with a global coalition, which is we call the COVAX. So that I think is a very good start where we are looking at the vaccine that's being developed by about 150 companies or countries are involved in that one. So that will give us a access to as much as we could probably. From my understand is they will make it available to at the very minimum 20% of the population. So in the Philippines, we will probably have access to about 20 million of these vaccines. And we're about 110 million people, so that's still not enough. So other countries, if the one in the Sputnik, they call it the Sputnik, is something that is successful, then we very much welcome that also. But here in the United States, from day one, the instructions that came from the Office of the President was to see, especially in the early days when many of these pharmaceutical companies were in the advanced stages, like Moderna and Novavax. We have been interacting with them on a regular basis, and we are doing what we can to have access to these vaccines once it's available. As you know, the CDC has recently announced that the vaccine may be available as early as October or maybe even in November. Of course, there are political rumblings going around, but we're confident. I spoke to some of these, some of my friends in the pharmaceutical business. They said that the vaccine they have been working on this vaccine since as early as January, and the fast tracking is obviously they've done a lot of work almost 24/7 to be able to develop this vaccine. So this is a quote from him directly. He says, once the vaccine is made available, you can be sure that these pharmaceutical companies are not going to put it out in the market if they know that it's not safe. They will put it out in the market because they are 100% sure that it is safe. And remember, this is a country where litigation is, you're a lawyer. Lawyers will become rich like you. If the vaccine goes wrong, they will have all kinds of suits going their way, and they're not going to risk any of that. It's bad enough they've spent a lot of money already in developing the vaccine, but they're not going to go out into the market if it's something that's unsafe. So I'm confident that, again, the vaccine that's being developed here in the United States, maybe I'm a little biased, it's probably much safer than the other countries that are developing it because they have stringent rules and laws that are being followed here, even if this is fast-tracked being fast-tracked. And let's just assume that the current administration of President Trump is pushing this for political reasons. But again, the pharmaceutical companies that are developing this and are producing this are not going to take their chances. So I am banking on what my friend in the pharmaceutical business here in the United States told me. I am confident that it will be successful, and the efficacy and the safety of this vaccine will be good. And that is what we're working on. As a matter of fact, a private entity in the Philippines has already talked to Moderna, and they are working on a distribution contract. Hopefully, we'll be able to access these vaccines. And as you know, they're already producing it in the millions. They are taking their chances, but they're almost, like I said, they're sure. The chances of it being safe and successful is so high that many of these companies are already producing the vaccine in preparation precisely so that there'll be mass distribution. And all countries, whoever have, if you have a vaccine, you have to share it, because if we do not have a large majority of the global population are not immunized, or at least you need a minimum of 60%, then we're back to square one. We need to have a successful vaccine that will be given to as many as 7 billion people. That's a hell of a lot of people that need to have it. And some of these vaccines require twice. You need to be vaccinated twice. So again, we're working with the US companies, and I know that they definitely will give the Philippines, considering that we have good relations here, access to these vaccines at the quickest possible time.
Sir, just to be clear, in your private conversation with these companies that you're working on, sir, did they give you any time frame when these vaccines would be for commercial circulation already, sir?
But I think I would venture to think that they're really very cautious about when they can distribute this worldwide, because obviously the United States will have priority, and that's why they're looking at November as a time frame when it will be available here. So I think conservatively it will be available in the Philippines, for instance, in the first part or the first quarter of next year. So hopefully by the time this thing is available in the Philippines, we'll have a lot of visitors coming again from the Philippines that will be coming to the United States and will be safe. And you and I can go back to visit our friends and relatives in the Philippines, because it will be much safer already. And I think that first quarter of next year would probably be a safe time frame, considering that this might be available here in November.
Good to know, sir. In terms of the Filipino American community, sir, is there anything that they can do to help you, sir, in terms of your effort to helping the country in this pandemic, sir? How can they help you, sir?
Well, not me, but I think more of the country. One of the things that really I'm feeling very sad about with this pandemic is that we have a lot of our kababayans in the Philippines who are suffering because of the loss of jobs, especially our OFWs who had to go home, and they had to go home to their provinces. And of course, we all know the kind of remittances that the OFW does in terms of helping their relatives. So the best really is for each and every one of us who can afford to give some help to many of our unfortunate brothers and sisters in the Philippines. It would make them feel good that there are still people who care for them. And in fact, a group of my close personal friends who are in business, they're putting together not only funds but even contributing to food bags to help those that are in need. And because to them, what is the point of having business if you will have people dying and even you yourself. So your profit is really your life. You save a life, and your life, that is what is really important now. Monetary profit is not anymore in the equation, at least not this year. People have already written off any kind of chance that you were going to make money. There are only a few Jeff Bezos in the world, and they're just lucky that they were able to find something that continues to practically print money for them. But for most companies, they're looking at really finding ways and means to help people. And that's one way of your being able to help Filipino Americans here who can afford to help in some measure, whatever it is that you do. Any little thing will always be much appreciated. Alam mo naman tayo mga Pilipino konting tulong lang, happy na tayo Basta nalalaman natin na meron tayong mga kapwa-tao na tumutulong sa atin, masaya na tayo. Ako, mag-hello lang sa akin ng mga Pilipino, happy na ako Because alam ko kasi kababayan natin You go to a restaurant o pumunta ka sa anywhere, especially those that I have friends who went on these cruise lines. We all know there are many seafarers. To them, makita lang nila, mag-hello lang sila. Iba na yung trato sa kanila, VIP treatment na yung trato sa mga pasahero ng mga kasi yung mga Filipinos doon, they're just so happy to see you and they're happy that you even said hello. In the same way with us, we feel good when they say hello to us. So yun, I think that if we can help in some way, it will really be much appreciated.
Sir, you mentioned the Filipino crew members. Magpa-plug lang ako, but I think I feel strongly that I have to mention this to our listeners. Si Ambassador has been very, very fundamental and critical in terms of the repatriation of many Filipinos, not just in the Florida area in terms of those cruise liners, but I'd like to be a witness to this in terms of the personal, very engaged participation of the ambassador in making sure that those Filipinos are repatriated smoothly. I just want to take note, sir, of how you help us here in San Francisco in the repatriation of those Filipino crew members of Grand Princess. No? And that was, I thought that was a big number, but I learned when I saw the figures in terms of Florida and the Caribbean. Wow. So we're a dent in terms of what you were doing there. So I thought it's a good opportunity to thank you, sir, on that.
Well, thank you, Andy. But, again, and I say this very sincerely, that, I'm one of those that really look at our OFWs as our really modern day heroes. Because, like I said, I have been observing the political landscape in the Philippines for so many, many years, over 40 years. And I have seen this develop during the time of Secretary Blas Opre, who was the brainchild of this overseas Filipino workers being deployed abroad. And there is no doubt that they've helped the economy in the Philippines, and they've helped a lot of, everything that went on in our economic activities in the Philippines. And so I always really sincerely feel for them. And now that they are suffering to a certain extent, it makes you feel bad for them, because I know that they have sacrificed a lot, and now they have to go home because they had loss of their jobs and everything like that. And I really feel bad. And just to give an example of how strongly I feel for them is that, when I was very active in the media, and we had a columnist in our publication who kind of made fun of overseas workers. I called our editor-in-chief and I told her, I said, I want that columnist fired today. And we did. We fired because I just felt that it was totally uncalled for and very unchristian and insensitive for this particular columnist to write that way about overseas workers just because they were being loud in an airplane where she was also happened to be a passenger. You know, she was just being, it was condescending and looking down at these people. And I don't like that. And that is how strongly I feel. This happened many years ago, a long time ago, as a matter of fact. But I'll never forget that, because this columnist was being nasty, and I told our editor-in-chief, get rid of her. I want her out of this publication. I will not allow that kind of negative writing. You know, it's
Wow.
not. It's just totally unchristian. So that's why it was always. In fact, it's a blessing for me that if I can help people, especially our overseas workers, it'll be good. And I have no other agenda except to feel for what they feel. That's all there is to it.
Wow.
There are valuable people, and they have helped our country a lot.
Wow. Thank you, sir, for your very compassionate perspective on our heroes, the Filipino OFWs. I'm sure that message will be heard loud and clear, sir, in terms of our OFWs. We heard you loud and clear, sir, and that should set an example for all of us in terms of how we should respect and with reverence and
We're all lucky, Congen Henry, that we, especially those who are here, you have your jobs, you have your homes, but all of these overseas workers, they sacrifice so much, especially those in the Middle East. Yung mga ating mga kababayan na nandyan sa Middle East, alam naman natin kung ano yung dinadaanan nila, na naranasan nila. Some of them are even being treated so badly. As you know, President Duterte wanted to break our relationship with Kuwait. If you remember, not too long ago, when there was a domestic helper that was tortured by her employers and put in a freezer. And the president was right. In fact, our consul general here in Washington, D.C. was our ambassador then, DCM Renevilla. He told us the story of what happened there. And rightly so. We should break relationship with the country that will not protect our workers. We don't need them. We don't need that kind of. And we're happy that they were able to catch this couple that was who tortured them, and they were sentenced to some really very harsh punishment. I think that's the way we should do. And as government workers or people in the diplomatic service, it is incumbent upon you to really protect our overseas workers, because they're a valuable asset. Not only are they human beings, but they are one of our best assets. We should do everything we can for them in every way possible, because they sacrifice a lot more than many of us can say.
Mhm. Wow. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, shifting to the Filipino American community, do you see the Filipino American community here in the United States as a critical component of the archipelago's national development, sir? And is there a way that they could actively participate? And what could we in the consulate, not just in San Francisco, and perhaps the consulates all over the U.S., what can we do, sir, to help move the Filipino community, Filipino American community, in that direction, sir?
Well, first of all, I think that the Filipino Americans are, I would say that they're all doing, I assume, doing well, and have a very good education, and they, although we don't know how it is during the pandemic and the crisis now, but they can definitely help by definitely showing some compassion for many of our people in the Philippines. But in the long term, I think it's best that before you make a judgment on any government and any administration in the Philippines, like me, like I said, I look at a administration which come and go. I don't look at the color, their political color, but I look at them on how effective they are in doing it. Because at the end of the day, it is really we who will benefit if a government is doing well. I will not want to see a government fail just because I don't know who the president is or I don't know who this powerful person is. If that person is doing well, and they can count on me as one of them who will support in my own small way. I want to see our country prosperous and progressive. I don't want to see it go down the drain just because we have our own agenda. I mean, this personal agenda, which is one of our biggest problems, I must say that, and I guess it was born out of the days when we were under colonial rule, especially during the Spanish times. My mother, who was half Spanish, will definitely not be happy with what I have to say, but the Spaniards have made us subservient. The Spaniards were the ones who are, who made us feel as if we are a second-class citizen in our own country, and that we have to take care of it ourselves, and that so it was like a divide and conquer. And so it's now, as we begin to mature and realize many of what happened in our history, we have to be together. Kung tama ang ginagawa ng isang gobyerno, suportahan natin. Pag mali, doon tayo magsabi lahat na mali yung ginagawa ninyo, kailangan palitan ninyo yung ginagawa ninyo. Then you have to have an administration and obviously a leader that will be sensitive to these things. That's very important if we are really to survive as a country. Otherwise, we will always be watak-watak tayo, lagi na lang tayo kanya-kanyang lakad. Walang mangyari talaga sa atin. In unity there is strength. That's as simple as that. If we're going to go on our own, then forever ganun lang tayo. We will never develop as a nation. And in fairness to the United States and to the Americans, when it's time for them to pull together, they do. In some way or the other, they all band together and help. And this is what's happening here during the pandemic. I'm very happy to see, and I would like to see it happen in the Philippines. And I think it's happening in some way, that there are many companies that are trying to put together food bags like what they're doing here in the United States, helping people who have lost their jobs. Because that's the only way. Community spirit is what we have. Kaya tayo merong bayanihan. That bayanihan 1 and 2 is basically encouraging people to, while government is in the forefront, kailangan susunod lahat ng tao na makakatulong sa mga tao. Kasi kung may mangyari sa mga tao, ikaw rin ang kawawa eh. You're the one that will suffer in the end. Social unrest is a very strong possibility. If Filipinos, if people are desperate times call for desperate measures, and desperate measures, they have nothing to lose. They will go on a rampage, and you don't want that, because in the end, you will all lose. So you help people whom you can help. That's the only thing that in any way that you can, believe me, yan ang tinatawag na karma. Babalik rin sa iyo yan. Kung anong binibigay mo, yan ang ibabalik sa iyo. Kung masama kang tao, babalikin ka rin. You will get your come-upons one way or the other. And I am a very strong believer in that one. Because I have seen people, they can be so wealthy and so everything they have. But all it took was some health problem that they had. They begin to cry and say, I wish I had done more good rather than bad. Because now I'm dying and I will not be able to take whatever I have. And that is what we call karma. That's what it is.
Wow. Well, thank you, sir. Not only did you give us a briefing on the macro Philippine US relations, but you allowed us to go inside your soul, sir. And
I'm sorry for being. I'm sorry for sounding like like giving a sermon, but sometimes
no, sir.
When I'm in the spirit of the way I feel right now, I sometimes maybe I talk too much, but But I really feel this way, and I'm very comfortable with your program, CONGEN Henry. That I really want to. I've been wanting to impart this to many of our Filipino friends here in the United States. I want them to know that this is really what it's all about. That's what this pandemic should teach all of us, that we need to help each other. Yun lang ang message natin dyan. I have nothing else. This is my one and only government job. In a couple of years, I'll be back in the Philippines, back to my normal life, well, hopefully my normal life. And I will just be watching from the sidelines. And one day I will see you, Consul General, as I told you, you either become a Secretary of Foreign Affairs. Who knows? But I hope in some measure we've been able to inspire everyone that a good deed will always be repaid by another good deed. That's all there is to it. So, salamat. Salamat sa iyo, salamat sa ating mga kababayan dito sa Amerika.
We're very appreciative, sir. Now we understand you more. And for those Filipino Americans who are listening and seeing you for the first time and understanding what's inside your heart, I think it's very good, sir. And I'm sure.
Like I said, I'm already in my very senior state, and as you all know, many of you that know me, I was not very keen anymore of really joining government as a diplomat because I was ready to retire. But I'm happy that I did because at least I've been able to see for myself how it is to be a government worker like yourself, and it gives you a great satisfaction when you're able to help people, especially during this very critical time in the history of the world. It gives you that satisfying feeling that you've been able, maski na paano nakatulong ka rin sa iyong kapwa Pilipino, and it's a good feeling. And like I said, I'm a firm believer in karma, and and we're all Christians. We all believe in our faith that that's the way we are supposed to lead our lives. Kailangan maski na paano nakakatulong ka sa tao instead of being a problem to people. Yun ang importante sa lahat.
Wow. And we feel your sincerity, sir. And I'm sure it's going to reverberate. And so, thank you, sir. Actually, may isa lang po akong point, and I should have asked this question earlier, and I apologize. I asked you on so many important points, but I never asked you, how are you there, sir, in Washington, D.C., sir? Are you still okay, sir?
Well, as you can see, we have to continue to be careful, and I'm one of those that's a firm believer in health is wealth. In other words, it's useless to insist on trying to be a hero when you're dead. You're no longer a hero. I mean, unless of course you want to be remembered as a hero, but we are all heroes in our own right by just simply doing our jobs. And I've had very few meetings in terms of in-person meetings because of the situation. In fact, next week we're being invited to the Blair House for a limited number of diplomats who will meet with Secretary Azar, the Health Secretary of the United States. I'm anticipating that he probably will talk about the vaccine that's going to be made available, and so that's going to be something that we're looking forward to. And then we're going to practice all the necessary protocols to keep ourselves safe. So I may be able to attend that, one of the few events that we have to do it for our country, and see how we can, or we anticipate that we'll be able to send a message to the United States government that we would like to work with them, and that we definitely would like to have access to this vaccine that's being developed by the United States. So hopefully that will be our in-person meeting with Secretary Azar next week.
Wow. And we wish you well, sir, and we'll continue to keep you in mind. And hopefully, that meeting, sir, will bring out good news not only for Filipino Americans here, but back home in the Philippines. So, uh, sir, I want to thank you, sir.
Thank you also.
Obviously, this conversation was for me very enlightening, and thank you for opening your mind and your soul to our kababayan, sir. And the sincerity, sir, is very noticeable, and we will keep that, sir. And I think you've done a lot of inspirational points that our kababayans can bring home and as a takeaway from this, sir. No? So thank you very much, sir, and we wish you well, all your staff and officers, sir. And we we pray for your success, sir, because your success is our success and the success of the community and the success of the archipelago.
Thank you, CONGEN Henry, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to many of our friends. As you said, you're going to broadcast this to as many people as possible, and I really treasure these moments that I can give just a few points and messages to our people that that we all have to be together in this. Kasi isa lang naman tayo eh. Maski na anong kulay natin, pare-pareho pa rin tayo, isa lang ang iniisip natin kung anong mabuti para sa ating bayan. So, salamat, Henry. I really appreciate this time and I thank your staff. I think I see Vanessa as one of your, I guess, producers and directors of this program. So, thank you very much. Congratulations for a good program. So, salamat. Maraming salamat sa inyo.
Sir, thank you very much, sir. And I will keep that iisa lang tayo. And I will add up to that iisa lang tayo. Pinay ako, taas noo, Pinoy ako, proud ako. Thank you, sir.
Salamat. Thank you.
Salamat po, kababayan. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all. Thank you.
Maraming beses na kitang nilayasan, iniwanan at ibang pinuntahan. Parang babaeng ang hirap talagang malimutan. Ikaw lamang ang aking laging pinabalikan. Manila, I keep coming back to Manila. Simply
Our online celebration commemorates the 122nd anniversary of the proclamation of Philippine independence. I know, Dom, we are still in a pandemic and times are really tough right now, but that's not stopping us from celebrating our Filipino history, our culture, and our pride. And you know, tonight is the night to also honor the men and women who have really sacrificed so much amid the pandemic, our frontliners.
hinahanap kita Manila, ang ingay mong kay sarap sa tenga. Mga
Mabuhay!
mong naglilipad,
And all for a toast.
mga babae mong nagagandahan. Take me back in your arms, Manila, and promise me you'll never let go. Promise me you'll never let go. Manila, Manila, I keep coming back to Manila. Simply ain't no place like Manila. Manila, I'm coming home.
That was a phenomenal performance.
Good morning there in Manila.
Hi, Sir Henry. Kamusta po kayo? We are okay here, and we're enjoying. We enjoyed the reception, and then we also want to congratulate you for your celebration of the 122nd Philippine Independence Day anniversary.
And promise me you'll never let go. Promise me you'll never
Ryan Kayabyab and the Ryan Kayabyab Singers, thank you very much.
Now, to cap our program, we wish to leave you with a video prepared by the Philippine Consulate General in San Francisco to honor Filipino frontliners all over the world.
Mabuhay po kayo.
From the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much po, and have a good night or have a good morning. Thank you. Good night. Pinoy ako, proud ako.